I'm looking at the live transponder data from the Strait of Hormuz right now, and what I'm seeing is something that hasn't happened in 40 years, a total, absolute maritime blackout. Usually, this narrow stretch of water is the most crowded highway on the planet, a glowing neon ribbon of AIS pings representing billions of dollars in crude oil, liquefied natural gas, and consumer goods. But as of 3 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated, the screen has gone dark. The pings didn't just drift away. They vanished in a synchronized shutdown that signals the end of the global supply chain as we've known it for 3 decades. If you think this is just another Middle Eastern skirmish that will result in a few extra cents at the gas pump, you are fundamentally misreading the board. The red line that maintained the illusion of global stability has been erased. In exactly 14 days, the float, the inventory currently sitting on trucks and in local distribution centers, will hit zero. Your local pharmacy will be out of critical antibiotics. The price of the smartphone in your pocket, already a luxury, just doubled on the secondary market because the replacements are currently trapped behind a wall of fire. I am going to reveal the Option 9 protocol that the Pentagon just activated, a contingency plan designed not to fix the supply chain, but to ration what remains for domestic survival. We have to ask the questions no one else is asking. Which 3 ghost ships are currently sitting on the seafloor? And why did the CEO of the world's largest shipping line just resign via an encrypted memo sent from a secure terminal in Copenhagen? The heartbeat of the global economy has stopped, and we are now living in the countdown. To understand the scale of this collapse, we have to look at the geography of the 21-mile suicide squeeze. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most important choke point, a maritime throat through which 20% of the world's petroleum and 35%. When that throat is constricted, the global body politic begins to suffocate within hours. We aren't just looking at a diplomatic standoff. We are witnessing a kinetic strike using what naval analysts call Swarm Doctrine. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard has deployed hundreds of fast attack crafts, not to sink every vessel they encounter, but to disable them. By targeting the steering gear and engine rooms of massive container ships, they have created a graveyard of steel that physically blocks the navigable lanes. Imagine a traffic jam of vessels worth over $100 billion, sitting ducks in a narrow channel while drone sirens wail overhead and sea mines bob in the wake of every attempted rescue. This isn't just a blockade. It's a structural amputation of the global economy. Market data indicates that the insurance premiums for any hull entering these waters have spiked to levels that effectively make trade impossible. Even if a captain were brave enough to run the gauntlet, no bank will underwrite the voyage. The world's energy supply is being choked out, but the oil isn't the real story here. The real story is hidden in the climate-controlled medicine holds of those trapped ships. To understand why your medicine cabinet is the next battleground, we have to look at the Malacca bypass that just failed. The domestic impact of this maritime blackout will be felt first and most painfully at your local pharmacy. This is the reality of the 90% factor. 90% of the precursors for Western antibiotics, blood pressure medications, and even basic analgesics originate in laboratories in Asia and must travel through the very war zone that is now a no-go area. We have spent 20 years building a just-in-time logistics model that prioritizes efficiency over resilience. Most major hospitals only carry a 72-hour critical surge supply of essential medications. We are now entering, as the ships sit idle, the clock is ticking on the chemical stability of temperature-sensitive cargo. But even more concerning is the silent rationing already taking place behind closed doors. Leaked memos from 3 major insurance providers have begun discussing Tier 1 survival prioritization. This is a polite way of saying that they are determining who gets the remaining supply of insulin and heart medication and who does not. Keep a close eye on this, because the timeline is accelerating. Your local CVS or Walgreens is no longer just a store. It is now a strategic national asset that may soon require National Guard oversight to prevent civil unrest. There is a concept in military strategy most people never encounter called social friction loading. It is the practice of intentionally stressing a population's basic needs to force a political surrender. It's being used on you right now, and the medicine is disappearing because of a secret deal signed in Beijing just 3 hours ago. While Western media focuses on the explosions, the real shift is happening in the shadows of the Beijing-Tehran pivot. We are seeing the emergence of a shadow fleet, dark tankers and unmarked container ships that are using Chinese transponder codes to bypass the Hormuz blockade, while every Western-aligned ship is systematically targeted. This is a geopolitical conspiracy of the highest order. Iran isn't just blocking oil. They are holding the raw neon gases and specialized minerals required for every microchip on Earth hostage. If you cannot move the gas, you cannot burn the chips. If you cannot burn the chips, the digital age grinds to a halt. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard has effectively shredded the 1974 energy codependence treaties that have governed the flow of power for half a century. They want you to think this is a religious war or a regional dispute, but the ledger says this is a hostile takeover of the digital age. By coordinating with Beijing, Tehran has ensured that while the West starves for resources, the Silk Road remains a viable, albeit expensive, alternative for the East. This strike just hit the supply chain tripwire that connects the geopolitical ambitions of Tehran directly to your personal bank account. In 60 seconds, I'm going to show you the satellite imagery of the Option 9 bunkers. But first, we have to talk about the collapse of your purchasing power. We are now entering the logistics death spiral. Within the last 72 hours, freight insurance rates have climbed an unprecedented 4,000%. To put that in perspective, no ship moves without a war risk premium that now often exceeds the total value of the cargo it's carrying. This is the valley of fear for the global economy. This isn't just about expensive gas. It's about the electronic exodus. Sources within the tech industry indicate that Apple and Samsung are reportedly ghosting their retail partners. They are diverting shipments away from consumer shelves and into secure warehouses to stockpile units for government contracts and high-level corporate partners. Imagine walking into a Best Buy next week and seeing the shelves literally bolted shut or covered in plywood, not because of a riot, but because the inventory on those shelves is now more stable and valuable than the US dollar itself. You aren't watching a simple price hike. You are watching the permanent deglobalization of your lifestyle. The era of the $20 toaster and the $800 flagship phone delivered in 2 days is over. Are you still operating on the assumptions of the old world, where every product was a click away? Or are you ready for what the 38 generals just signed in Washington? In the halls of the Pentagon, a silent mutiny has already taken place. We have obtained details of the Dissent Cable, a document signed by 38 senior military leaders who refused to authorize a limited, retaliatory strike against. Their reasoning was chilling. They cited that any kinetic response would permanently ignite the global sea lanes, making the current blockade permanent rather than temporary. This institutional betrayal shows a massive rift in the chain of command. While the political leadership wants to project strength, the tactical leadership knows that the West no longer has the merchant marine capacity to survive a protracted maritime war. In response, the administration has quietly dusted off Executive Order 12656. This allows the government to seize private logistics fleets, think FedEx, UPS, and Amazon Prime Air, to move what they call essential life assets. You suspected the system was fracturing. The refusal of the chain of command to engage in a traditional war is the final proof. The Pentagon isn't planning a rescue of the global economy. They are planning a retreat to a Fortress America economy, where the government controls the flow of every calorie and every kilowatt. There is one final coordinate, a tiny island in the Indian Ocean, that tells us exactly when the first missile will fly and the remaining 14-day window will slam shut. We are currently in a 14-day window of the float. The only thing standing between you and a total blackout of consumer goods is the inventory currently in the Pacific, moving toward West Coast ports. Once those ships dock and their containers are emptied, there are no more behind them. The Option 9 protocol is a triage plan for a dying empire. If you want to know when the point of no return is reached, you must watch the Baltic Dry Index. Market data indicates that if this index drops another 20 points, the Option 9 protocol becomes irreversible, and the federalization of the supply chain begins. The war in Iran is the match. They want you to be afraid, but I want you to be informed. The next 72 hours are the most critical in modern history. How is this story being covered where you live right now? Are you already seeing limits on essential items at your local stores? We'll continue tracking this situation as the transponders stay dark. See you in the next update. The reality of maritime logistics is that it is a system of momentum. A massive container ship, some over 1,000 feet long, cannot simply stop and start like a delivery van. When the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, the ripple effect doesn't just stay in the Persian Gulf. It travels at the speed of light through the financial markets and at the speed of knots across every other ocean. Right now, there are vessels currently in the middle of the Indian Ocean that are being ordered to literally turn around or loiter in open water because they no longer have a guaranteed port of entry that can handle their cargo. This is where the 14-day countdown becomes a mathematical certainty. Logistics experts use a term called buffer capacity. In a healthy economy, the buffer is about 30 to 45 days. However, since the supply chain shocks of the early 2020s, that buffer has been whittled down to almost nothing. We are operating on a razor's edge. Satellite imagery from the last 12 hours shows a massive cluster of ships outside the port of Jebel Ali, unable to move forward and unwilling to move back. These ships are carrying the lifeblood of the modern world. Not just oil, but high-end components for medical imaging, specialized chemicals for water treatment, and the microprocessors that run our power grids. When the Hormuz heartbeat stops, these components stop moving. According to sources close to the International Maritime Organization, the backlog created by just 3 days of total blackout will take at least 6 months to clear, even if the blockade ended tomorrow. But it isn't ending. Official readouts from Tehran suggest they are prepared for a war of attrition that lasts through the fiscal year. This is the structural amputation I mentioned earlier. We are losing the limbs of the global economy, and the torso is beginning to go into shock. Why did the CEO of the world's largest shipping line resign? This is the question that should be on the front page of every newspaper, but it's buried under headlines of missile strikes and political posturing. The resignation, sent via an encrypted memo, reportedly cited unmanageable systemic risks and a loss of maritime sovereignty. Translated from corporate speak, he is saying that the private sector can no longer guarantee the safety of its assets or its people. The 3 ghost ships, currently sitting on the seafloor in the strait, are a testament to this. These weren't accidental collisions. These were targeted strikes on ships carrying dual-use technology, items that could be used for either civilian or military purposes. By sinking these specific vessels, Iran has sent a message. We know exactly what is in your containers, and we decide what reaches your shores. The Pentagon's Option 9 protocol is the ultimate exit strategy. It isn't a plan to reopen the strait. It's a plan to survive its closure. This involves the strategic national stockpile being expanded to include not just masks and ventilators, but semiconductors and raw rubber. We are seeing a shift toward a command and control economy that we haven't seen since the 1940s. While the different sides are arguing over who fired the first shot, the financial flows suggest that the smart money has already left the table. Central banks have signaled a move toward hard assets, and the diplomatic cables mentioned a new maritime order that does not include the United States as the primary guarantor of the seas. We see 2 realistic scenarios. First, a massive, multinational naval escort operation that risks a total regional war. Second, a slow, painful retreat into regional trade blocs, where the global supply chain is officially struck from the dictionary. Which of these scenarios do you consider most likely? Are you prepared for a world where the just-in-time delivery of your life-saving medication is no longer a guarantee, but a memory? We'll continue tracking the Option 9 rollout. See you in the next update.